the Keystone Sports Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Keystone Kickoff Show. I am really excited about this. We've got a new segment we're adding to our show. We're calling it Shaun's Take. And here is our guest, the appropriately named Shaun Gold. Shaun, welcome to the show.
Jim, thanks for having me. I'm excited to get going with this.
Fantastic. So am I, Shaun. Now, to understand, Shaun's been really successful in picking games, and he is now going to become our in-house expert. We're going to have Shaun in every week. He's going to take the top games, give us his picks. Just to give us an idea, Shaun, let's talk how you did last week. Top games I had listed as Penn State, West Virginia, Florida State, LSU, Colorado, TCU, Utah, Florida, and Duke, Clemson. How'd you do on those top 5 games last week?
Well, Jim, so those first 4 games that you all mentioned, we hit on every single one of them, correctly picking against the spread, especially that Penn State game, last play touchdown. You know I was going crazy for that one. The other games, Colorado, I knew it was coming in that game. And we were big on Colorado. I thought TCU was overvalued, but the one game I have not mentioned is that last one that you read. Unfortunately, when the line opened up, I saw Clemson as a 14.5-point favorite. I thought that was too much, and I was siding with Duke. But as that line crept down to 12, I reluctantly switched over to Clemson and have regretted that pick ever since.
So that's the difference between you having an undefeated week. All right, let's see how you do this coming week, Shaun. And we're going to pick a Penn State game and the 4 other top games. That's how we're going to be doing this every week. Unfortunately, though, we do this the first time. There's actually no spread as we're recording this, Shaun, for the Penn State-Delaware game. I don't know about you, but I usually look to avoid these games that have something crazy like a 40-point spread, something like that. How about you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm expecting when the line is released, we're at least going to see Penn State favored by 30-plus points. And the tricky thing with these games is you know that Penn State's going to go in and get a blowout victory, but what point are they going to take their foot off the gas? That is the big question that I always look at in these massive spread games. We saw Oregon, for example, score 81. They never let up. But there's some teams, when you get in the third quarter, they start running the ball, they start chewing clock. Now, the thing that's good for Penn State's case in covering whatever this spread is going to be is last week they did not take their foot off the gas. And they wanted to go in and show teams, we are for real, this offense is for real. And why, even in a big spread, I would still likely lean Penn State this week is because they know until they play Ohio State, they are in the shadow of Michigan and Ohio State, and they want everybody to know how good this offense is. So it's always a question mark of whether a team that's a heavy favorite is going to let up. But I've got a feeling the Nittany Lions are not going to let up this week.
Well, we'll see about that one when a spread comes out. Let's hit some other games where there actually is a spread. I guess the biggest game of the week, Texas at Alabama. Alabama touchdown, 7-point favorite. A year ago, Texas gave Alabama all they could handle. What are we looking at there?
Yeah, I think we see a very different game this year. Texas, I believe, overperformed last year in this game. That game was at Texas, which added a lot. They're going back to Tuscaloosa for this game. And I think Alabama knows if they lose this game, their odds for getting into the playoffs are going to decrease dramatically. And I don't think Nick Saban wants that to happen. So I think Alabama is going to come out firing, and they're going to hand it to Texas in this game. I would take them with that -7 line.
I agree with that one. I think after last year, I don't want to overreact to what happened last year, and I think Alabama has something to prove. Next up game we have is Oregon, Texas Tech. Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite. It's always a little tricky when that's just under a touchdown spread, Shaun.
Yeah, so for me, the really interesting thing is we have the number 13 team in the country coming off an 81-7 victory, taking on an unranked team that just lost their first game to Wyoming, a Mountain West program. Why are the odds makers so reluctant to make Oregon a heavier favorite? I'm not sure, but I like the fact that this Oregon offense looked unstoppable, and I know they weren't playing the greatest competition, but if Wyoming can score 35 against Texas Tech, now that wasn't double overtime, what can Oregon score against that defense. I don't think this Oregon offense is going to slow down at all. And -6.5, I think, is too low for this game. So I'm going to roll with the Ducks covering this once again.
Again, this is unfortunate. I keep agreeing with you, Shaun. For exactly the points you brought out, Oregon in the high-scoring game. Even if Texas Tech hangs in there, you could still see this being a 2-touchdown game, and walk away saying, "Gee, I was surprised Texas Tech gave it that much of a game." So I'm with you on this one. I really do like Oregon. Next up, this is kind of an interesting game. Texas A&M at Miami. A&M is a 4.5-point favorite. And that's always, to me, the interesting thing when you have these out-of-conference games. Those are the best games now, before conference games start, the interconference games. You have two, Power 5 teams. A&M, Miami, I got to admit, I have no clue on this one.
Well, I think one of the biggest questions, and one of the most underrated questions, I'll say, heading into this college football season was, is Miami back? It's been a couple years since Miami has been really a prominent program that from the old days of, the U. Week 1 was a very good showing for them. I didn't think that they would blow out Miami, Ohio like they did. I'm not surprised to see that their offense scored 38 points, but I was surprised to see that their defense only let up a field goal. I thought Miami, Ohio would be able to move the ball a bit better against this Miami defense than they did. So that gives me a lot of confidence that Miami's going to cover this spread. I think Texas A&M is a good program. They're going to have a good year, and their offense exploded for 52 points against New Mexico. But I do have to say, there's something about going to the U that's a really hard place to play. And I think that home field advantage is going to be huge for Miami. I see them covering and potentially even pulling off the upset in this one.
That's interesting. And again, I'm not going to agree or disagree with you on this one because this Texas A&M team, we know how they've recruited over the last several years, and they underperform. So it's like, what are you going to see? I start to treat them like I do Texas. The running joke, like, this is the year Texas is back. This is the year. I keep wondering the same way about Texas A&M. Is this finally going to be the year that they're going to live up to their talent? And at what point do you just say, no, they're not?
And you know what the funny thing is for this matchup, we can say that about Texas A&M. I think we can put Miami in that same exact category of, is this the year? Miami's a program that you always have to take seriously, but the past couple of years, they haven't been there. And now they're getting into that category of, hey, we should be back right now. And is that going to be for real, or is that going to be a lie once again this season? I'm leaning to the side that Miami may be back, not back in the sense that they're going to go for a national championship or anything, but back in the sense that they're going to be a darn competitive football team this year and can pull off some upsets like this game against Texas A&M.
It's going to be a fun game to watch, an interesting one. Shaun, I left what I think is the most interesting game for the ending, and maybe it's just the most interesting team in the country. We got Nebraska at Colorado, and at the time we were recording this, I saw Colorado favored by 2.5. I also saw them favored by 3.5. Again, right around that field goal range, whether it's more or less, that's a critical point. And I'm just wondering, is this a situation, did you buy into Deion Sanders and what they did last week against TCU? How about you? You buying it?
Well, Jim, let me tell you, 2.5, 3 points, give it to me. I don't care. When Deion Sanders says something, I've learned I got to listen to him. He told us all that Colorado was going to be for real this year, and their win total was set at, 4 wins or something like that heading into the year, which I thought was way too low originally. But I'm not going to lie, even though I had Colorado against the spread against TCU, I did not expect them to come out firing like they did. And I think this is a team that we have to take seriously. And the biggest thing for this is Coach Prime has said it time and time again. They are going to be for real this year. And to every single player in that locker room believes that they are the better team in any game they're going to play in. Doesn't matter who their competition is, they're going to believe that they should be winning this game. And that's something that's really dangerous for a team that's been slept on. So I like Colorado at the -3 line. I'd like them at -5.5 if it came to it. I think they're going to win by more than a touchdown in this game. I think what we saw last week was only a glimpse of what we're going to see from Colorado this week. And as I said, when Coach Prime is talking, I'm going to be listening.
Well, I'll tell you what I think some of us missed, and maybe this is a little bit my bias. I'm not the biggest Deion Sanders fan in the world, but you can't deny what they did last week against TCU. Even if TCU is not going to be, really a top 20 team, that was still something. But what I think a lot of us overlooked is Colorado has a couple stars, if not superstars, on that roster.
Yes. Yeah. Shadir Sanders, their quarterback, made every single throw you could ask a quarterback to make. That's one of the things when you look at big stat lines from quarterbacks, what type of production was it? Was it dropping a 5-yard slant and your receiver taking it 88 yards to the house? Or are you hitting 10-yard outs to the field? Are you hitting fades, then you're dropping it right in the bucket? And Sanders was doing all of the above last Saturday against TCU. And then, of course, we can't not talk about Travis Hunter, who's logging both offensive snaps and defensive snaps and is dominating on both sides of the ball. He's going to be an asset. He's like the Shohei Ohtani of Colorado this year, a guy who should not be doing what he's doing, and he's going to continue to play at an incredibly high level. And the other thing I like is that Deion Sanders knows that his program could not upset TCU like that and then come and flop in week 2. So I think they're going to be locked and loaded. It's a home game for Colorado. This may be the craziest home game in Colorado history. That crowd is going to be there. These players are going to be ready. And we already know from week 1, they're going to be well coached and prepared for this game.
Okay, very quickly, you have Alabama -7 against Texas, Oregon -6.5 against Texas Tech, Miami's getting 4.5 points against Texas A&M, and you've got Colorado against Nebraska. Very quickly, Shaun, for our listeners who want to get more information, more of these picks from you, where can they go find it?
Yeah, so make sure you follow us at Shaun's Take on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'm posting all sorts of content on there. And then you can also reach out to our website, www.shaunstake.com. The website is under renovation right now, but it will be up and running soon. So for the time being, reach out to me on social media. I'll get back to you guys. And welcome to the Shaun's Take community.
Fantastic, Shaun. For our first show, that was fantastic. But we will wait till next week and see how your picks did, and we'll really decide how well it went. All right, that is it for our show. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you join us next time on the Keystone Kickoff Show.
Keystone Sports Network.